Hey folks, Sean McCormick here. So one of the new features of Lightroom 3 is lens corrections. It's probably the only big feature that we haven't really seen before. I think a lot of the stuff that's been done since Beta 2 is under the hood stuff, tidying up bugs, trying to improve performance. So let's have a quick look at what's happening. And we're going to start off with the classic that everybody seems to be using, is a fisheye lens shot, because it's kind of really obvious. Now, a couple of things you need to know about lens corrections. There's two sections to it. We're going to look over here. We've manual, as you can see here, and profile. Now, profile is a huge change. And the way profiles work is that Adobe and Adobe users, etc., have made profiles which basically map out the distortions in the lens. They can be complex distortions or they can be simple distortions depending on the lens. It's able to cater for quite strong geometric distortion. Now, obviously, because of the fact that it's brand new, there is a limited amount of profiles available. Sigma have generously created profiles for Adobe, for Sigma lenses. So if you're a user of Sigma lenses, you'll be delighted to hear that they have very accurate profiles for Sigma lenses. Now, the way the profile is selected is that it's based on the EXIF information. Unfortunately, older cameras don't write it out correctly, so it's very possible to have more than one annotation for your lens. Like my 24-70 Canon L lens appears as a 24-70. It also appears as an EF 24-70. So you could see that even though it's the same lens, that there's two different annotations for it. So it may not always correctly pick your profile. But I'm going to show you how it works. I'm literally going to come over here to lens corrections in profile. I'm going to click enable profile corrections, and it selects the correct one. This was shot recently enough, so the EXIF is written in a standard newer form. It also knows that this was shot with a Canon EF 15mm f2.8, and I'm just going to stretch this out here. And then that it was also shot on a 5D Mark II. So what else can I say about it? That is literally it. It just literally selects it. Now, inside lens profile, we have a couple of different makes of lenses that have been profiled, and here's what's in the Canon list. Here's what's in the Nikon list. Sigma, you can see, is quite extensive. Sony, there's only a few Sonys in there. This is about access as much as anything else, and just the one Tamron. So what can we do once we have the profile selected? Well, if you think that it's doing too much or too little, I should also mention that in the profile there can be more than one version of a profile. So I'm just going to have a look at the other one. It depends on basically how they were made. So there's two different ones there. It's up to you which one you prefer. I'm just going to go with the original one for now. You can also decide to lessen the amount of distortion or increase the amount of distortion that's used. You can also increase or decrease the amount of chromatic aberration. The image not so obvious at this, but you can also decrease the vignetting that's in the image. That's yeah, there we go. It's obvious now as we do there. I didn't think it was going to be so obvious because of the fact that it's cropped so much of the image off from the actual fisheye. So I'm going to double click on these to reset them for now. And I'm going to switch over to manual. I should mention that if you make any changes here, you can save these as defaults. So every time you go back to that lens profile, it'll use those defaults. Manual. So if you were in a circumstance where you didn't have a profile selected, so let's come out of here. It still works with a profile if you do have a profile, so you can actually just manually do some distortion. Now, vertical and horizontal are basically perspective corrective controls, right? So that you can, if you shot at an angle, you can correct for the fact that you shot at an angle vertically and horizontally. And in rotate, you can also rotate the image. Now, the thing about things like rotate is in the crop tool, but it's different with this because the rotate is aware of the lens distortions and will rotate taking account of the lens distortions. So it's possible to get more in the image using this rotate than it would be using the standard crop and rotate. And the scale lets you move into the image. Again, because it's aware of the lens correction, it can be a little bit better than using the crop tool. But there is also a constrained crop, which will keep it the same size. And if I do that, it bounces in. And if you want to, if you turn this off now, you'll see that the crop hasn't changed. So you actually, if you go to the crop tool itself and you reset, that will reset it. And people are wondering about that. So you can reset it from within the crop tool itself. Lens vignetting and chromatic aberration are identical to previous versions. It's just a way to give you a manual control as well. So that's basically lens corrections, but I'm just going to show you a couple of other things. Because of the fact this is like such an exaggerated lens, I just want to show to you with other lenses. Okay, well, here's one with a profile, and in this case here, we're going to click on it, and it says none, but that's not true. It's a Sigma, and it's when I've selected Sigma, see it's automatically jumped to know that it's a 10 to 20. Right, and so I'm just going to turn it on and off. And you can see that basically it's going to push the middle out a little bit, and it has brightened the edges where you can see where the vignetting on the lens has been a problem. And for people who are worried about the bird, this was actually shot remotely. I was about, I don't know, 10 feet away, 12 feet away, something like that. I wasn't right in on top of the bird. It was on the end of a really, really long stand that was shoved in gently. So next thing I want to show you is just here in the mountain. If we look along the edge, again, this is an unprocessed shot. You can kind of see a little red line here, and down here you can see a little kind of cyan line. So I enable the lens corrections, and because this is on the 5D, it's able to, detect the lens correctly. We can see that the redness has gone off the edge and the cyan has gone off the edge there. That's just showing you some of the automatic chromatic aberration correction. So that's like a very, very quick overview of lens profile corrections in Lightroom, just showing you different things that the lens profile does.